We couldn't get everything we wanted. And when we had this debate, you couldn't talk about the whole budget. So in essence, we were only able to focus on about 11% of the budget. I understand people get upset about walking through a debt ceiling, but this is a House, a Senate, and a presidency. I think when you read the Wall Street Journal, you read the New York Post, you sit back and listen to a lot of economists, they'll say, this is the strongest debt ceiling we ever had.
US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy there on what else? The debt limit deal. Banríon Capital Management President and CEO Shana Sissel joins us now from Chicago. And Shana, that debt limit relief rally in the US lasted, 30 minutes. That's even less than the day or so that we had here in the Asia Pacific. But I think you're not surprised.
I'm not surprised. I expect that a debt limit deal will get done. I think the market generally does too. Politicians are willing to stand their ground just as long as it allows them to make a point, but they also want to get reelected. And I think everybody, including them, know that not getting a deal done is catastrophic. So I expect that a deal will get done, will be passed, and we can kind of move forward from here.
Well, let us move forward from here. Well, let's talk about the Nasdaq, which had a pretty good day. That was up about 1/3 of 1%. Nvidia having a very good day, but couldn't hold on to that $1 trillion market cap. If you're holding Nvidia shares right now, what do? Do you take some profit?
Well, as it turns out, I do personally own some Nvidia. This is a stock that I've followed my entire career. I have always been a bull on this stock. I've owned it for a while. Clearly, I've made quite a bit of money in the last 2 weeks because of it. And I do struggle on whether or not I should sell it because I do think that there are long-term tailwinds to the stock that are going to make it so that the stock will continue its move higher. However, we have had quite a pop here. So I personally sold half of what I owned because I wanted to take profits. But I do think the long-term story for the stock remains very positive. These trends towards AI, the trends in that they are on the cutting edge of are not changing. The demand is rising, and they are the leader in the space. So overall, I think the long-term story is great, but in the short term, I would be taking profits here.
Can that promise around AI over technological advances and new trends offset the reality of higher interest rates, pressure on the broader economy in the long term?
I think short term there are pressures on the economy. I think it's interesting. We had better than expected consumer confidence numbers today. We have the jobs report on Friday where we haven't seen a lot of weakness in jobs. We still have 1.5 jobs per unemployed person. And we've had 10 consecutive months of declining inflation, and we've had this tightening policy. And then the unemployment rate in the U.S. has gone down from 3.6 to 3.4%. So there are definitely cracks in the economy. There is slowing growth, obviously, but long-term trends, I think, aren't going to be stymied by, short-term inflation headwinds and rising interest rates. I do think that it is a short-term phenomenon, and 2 years from now, rates will be lower, inflation will be lower, and stocks like Nvidia will continue to be doing quite well because this AI demand will continue to grow. I do think in the short term, it's a stock that I probably want to take profits from and then look for another entry point. But the long-term trends are there. So it is a difficult decision, I think, for people who have held the stock for a long time.
Are you concerned about the breadth of the market rally? I mean, we have seen other parts of the markets, like small caps, continue to be under pressure.
Yes, that is concerning. Since the October bottom, small caps are only up about 2%. Typically off a bottom, you would see small caps up 50, 60%, and we just haven't seen that. Another interesting thing we've seen is that typically you see financials do much better, or at least in line with the broader markets, and we actually haven't seen that. Financials as a whole, banks as a whole, are actually negative versus the S&P, which is positive. That is concerning. So there's definitely areas of concern that are unusual if you think that we've already seen the bottom. I don't think we have. I actually think the strong report from Nvidia, the stronger than expected consumer confidence, what is likely to be more of the same in the employment markets and what is likely to be more of the same in the inflation numbers will lead the Fed to a very difficult decision, which is, should they pause or should they continue to tighten? And that is the million-dollar question. I don't know the answer. I think they are likely to pause, but if we see a strong job report on Friday, they might think twice and actually hike another 25 basis points, which would be the right thing to do if the policy is about bringing inflation down back in line.
Yeah, that jobs report shaping up as a very crucial read for the Fed. So if we can't say, or you can't say what the Fed's going to do next, where do you place the odds of a recession? Do you have some thoughts on that?
I think the odds of a recession are 100%. The question is, when will the recession happen? And that I don't know the answer to. There's a lot of excess in the system. There was a lot of liquidity put back into the system after SVB. During this debt ceiling negotiation, the Treasury has been putting liquidity into the market. So I think getting the debt deal done will pull some liquidity out of the market, which is important. And if that happens, we start to see overall market conditions tighten. I think more likely than not, the Fed will continue to tighten, and that is going to lead to a recession. The Fed has made it clear that that is what they are aiming for, a shallow, but a recession nonetheless. And so I think we are going to see one. When that'll be, I'm not sure. I'm thinking first quarter of 2024. I was once thinking now, but there's just so much excess liquidity in the system. It is not going to come out overnight. So it's going to take time before we start to see the real impact of the Fed policy on the system.
Banríon Capital Management President and CEO Shana Sissel, always good to have you with us. And of course, a reminder about